Alright, today we're going to learn about solving equations with distributive property. So first we're going to review distributive property. In box 1, copy down this expression, negative 3 times 4x minus 8. And we're going to use distributive property first just to review distributive property. Remember, distributive property is when you take the number outside the parentheses and you're going to multiply it by both things inside the parentheses. So I'm going to multiply negative 3 times 4 and get negative 12x. And I'm going to multiply negative 3 times, remember this is a negative 8 because of that minus sign, I'm going to get plus 24. So that's how I use distributive property. Make sure you copy this all in box 1. Pause it if you need to. Alright, so here's an example. I'd like you to copy this in box 2. And I'm going to solve this one for you. So just copy in box 2 and go along with me. You can pause it if I start going too fast. First we're going to distribute the 3 to the numbers in the parentheses. So 3 times x is 3x. 3 times minus 2 is negative 6 or minus 6 equals 21. Notice I don't multiply this 21 out here. I don't multiply that times 3 because it's not in the parentheses. Now I'm ready to solve this equation. I've made it into a simple two-step equation. So I'm going to draw my river. I'm going to add 6 to both sides. You get 3x equals 27. Divide both sides by 3. And you get x equals 9. So that's how I solve an equation with parentheses in it. I use my distributive property. Make sure to copy this down in box 2. If you need to pause it, go ahead and pause it. Alright, in box 3, this problem, I want you to copy it down and try solving it on your own. If you're watching this on EduCanon, it will pop up asking you for the answer. If not, just pause it and then try solving the problem and press play when you're finished and see if you did it correctly. Alright, so the first step, of course, is to distribute that 4 to both numbers inside the parentheses. We get 8x plus 32 equals negative 32. Now I've made it into my two-step equation. I'm going to put a line down, put my river, subtract 32 from both sides, subtract 32. Let's use my addition boxes this time. Made a mistake here. This should be 32. Alright, so these are going to cancel. So we have 8x here equals, these have the same signs in my box, right here and here. So I'm going to add these two numbers, and there's more negatives, so it'll be a negative answer. So 32 plus 32 is 64. And there's more negatives, so it's negative 64. My next step is to divide by 8. So these two cancel, and I get x equals negative 8. Make sure you circle the answer. Alright, if you got this correct and you have the same steps, you can move on. If not, make sure you pause it and copy down the correct steps. Alright, copy this equation down in box 4. Remember to pause it if you need more time. I'm going to start with distributive property here. So 3 times x and 3 times 2. So here I get 3x plus 6 Now I'm not going to multiply times these two terms outside of the parentheses because they're not part of that multiplication problem because they're outside the parentheses. So I get minus 7 plus 2x, those just come down, equals 14. Now I'm going to combine my like terms. I can only combine the stuff that's on the same side of the river. So I'm going to look on this side of the river and see if I have any like terms. The first I see is 3x and 2x plus 2x. So 3x and 2x are like terms because they both have the same variable. They both have an x. So 3 plus 2 is 5x. And I'm done with those two, so I'm going to cross them off. Let's look for another set of like terms. I see a plus 6 and a minus 7, or negative 7. Those two are like terms because they both don't have a variable. So I'm going to add those two together. They're opposites. One's a positive, one's a negative. So I'm going to subtract them and get a 1. And when I look in here, there's 6 positives and 1 negative. That means there's more negatives. And so I'm going to put a minus 1, and that equals 14. So now I've made it into a two-step equation, which should be easy enough to finish. I'm going to add 1 to both sides. These will cancel, of course, and you get 5x equals 15. Just use my addition box here. Those two are the same, so I add them. They're both positive, so they're going to stay positive. Now, then I'm going to divide by 5, and I end up with my answer. These two cancel. I get x equals 3. Remember, if this is going too fast, just make sure you pause it in between my steps. Alright, copy this problem down in box 5. You're going to try this one on your own, so remember, distribute first, then combine like terms. So if you're watching this on anything but Educanon, pause it. If you're watching it on Educanon, it's going to pause it for you. Alright, so if you got it wrong, alright, let's look how you solve this equation. First we're going to distribute. So we're going to distribute the 3 to the 3x and the 3 to the negative 1. So you get 3x, sorry, not 3. 3 times 3 is 9. X. 3 times 1 is minus 1. Minus 3. Keep messing up here. So let's say it again. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times minus 1 is minus 3. Now let's distribute that 2. So 2 to the 4 and 2 to the 5. 2 times 4 is 8x plus 2 times 5 is 10. And that equals 8. Now I'll put my river on here. Now I look for any like terms on either side of the river I can combine. So I'm going to look on the left hand side over here. And the first thing I see is a couple of x's. I see a 9x and a positive 8x. So 9 plus 8 is 17x. Alright, now I see I'm going to get rid of those. I see a negative 3 and a positive 10. Now those two are different. One's negative, one's positive, so I'm going to subtract them. I get 7. Alright, and there's more positives. That's where this plus sign comes from. And that's going to equal 8. Now I'm going to subtract 7 from both sides. And I get 17x equals 1, and divide by 17. Now since it's just a fraction, I'm going to leave this as a fraction answer. So if you got this correct and you have all the steps correct, go ahead and move on. If you don't, make sure you pause it and get down the right steps in box 5. Alright, in box 6, I want you to write down the 2 things you need to do if there are parentheses in an equation you have to solve. Alright, the first thing you need to do is use the distributive property. So make sure you use the distributive property. That will get rid of the parentheses. The second thing you're going to do is combine your like terms. Remember, you can only combine things on one side of the equal sign or the other. So combine your like terms. Then you're all set. Just go ahead and solve the equation using the other stuff we have learned, the other steps we've learned in class.